A regular meeting of the City Council was held in person and remotely via Zoom on Thursday, January 12th, 2023 at 7 p.m. for the purposes of transacting any and all business. This meeting is being recorded and is live on SATV. Councilors absent, none. Council President Stott presided. Councilor Marcillo moved to dispense with the reading of the record of the previous meeting. All those in favor? So voted. I now request Councilor Dominguez that everyone rise to lead everyone and rise to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Public testimony. We have 2 members signed up this evening for public testimony. Members of the public, you may approach the podium to speak. Please speak directly into the microphone when you do talk so we can hear you properly. First person I will call is Robert Callahan. Please approach and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Robert Callahan, 8 Stearns Place, Salem, Mass. And I'm here to speak to you on behalf of the Salem retirees. I'm one of the elected board members to the Salem Retirement Board. Also, as a little background, I'm a retired police captain, 14-year member of the Park and Rec Commission, and also a member of the Community Preservation Committee. As most of us do, or all of us do that are here, we stayed pretty involved in the city of Salem, simply because of our love of the city of Salem. Also, the reason I'm here is to implore you to vote tonight on the additional 2% COLA increase that was passed by the state legislature and also signed by the governor that allows for a 1-year additional 2% increase. This increase for Salem retirees amounts to an additional $300 or $25 a month. The importance of this to Salem retirees is what most people don't realize is the majority of Salem retirees make under $15,000 a year. Over 187 of them make under $15,000 a year. The amount of inflation in the past 2 years, as everybody here knows, has totally surpassed everything anybody expected. Although $25 a month doesn't seem like much, getting $25 right away, along with the retroactive back to July 1st that this covers, means they get an extra $150. That extra $150, that'll pay for some oil. Not much oil, but some oil. Some gasoline. Not much gasoline, but some gasoline. Some electricity. Not much electricity, but some electricity. A lot of these retirees, and don't go by what you read in the paper about what retirees make, because that's some retirees. The majority of retirees are just scraping by. It hit home to me on Thanksgiving Day when Nancy Hersey told me down at the retirement board that we have to give the checks early because people get them and they rely on it for Thanksgiving. Well, it hit me when I went down to the retirement board, down to the credit union that day, the day before, when the checks got deposited, and there was a line there to get the money out. So a lot of these retirees are living paycheck to paycheck. They've been waiting for this now. They knew it was in the works. They knew the legislature passed it. We on the retirement board, we all have checked it out. We're all professionals that are on the retirement board. We have all checked it out. It's been in our committee since it started. We had our actuarial check it out, and in your package you have the letter from the actuarial. We can afford it. This does not involve any city monies at this time. There is no appropriation at this time. And what we're trying to do is what is the best for retirees. So what we're hoping is you don't redo the process, put it in committee, put it off, and let the retirees wait. We're hoping that you'll take a vote tonight, and I know you don't have to, and I know you can put it in committee. That's okay. I understand the process. We've all been around a long time. I know what the process is. I also know that you can vote tonight. You have the ability to do it, and if you can give it to the retirees right away, I know it'll help them right away. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Callahan. Next, we have Ms. Hayes. Ms. Hayes, if you could please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Sally Hayes, and I live at 21 Fairmount Street. And just to, there's a lot of new people here on the board now, on the city council. So I'd like you to know that I was a city councilor here for 14 years. And I've always been for the people. And I've lived in Salem my entire life. And I love Salem. But now it's time to help the retirees. I sit on the board, also the retirement board, as an elected official. I won't go into too much detail because I think Bob Callahan said it all. So I echo his remarks. And we all know how the retirees are today. We represent both. We represent the employees and also the retirees. But the retirees, it's sad, like Bob said, they're living from, never mind month to month, they're living from week to week if they got a little Social Security. So I'm asking you all to think about it and vote tonight for the increase, the 2% increase. Thank you very much, and Happy New Year to all of you.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes, for your comment. Hearings.
We have an order from National Grid to install one jointly owned pole on Pope Street. This is a change of location.
Is there anyone here appearing in favor?
There might be someone on, Sabita, if you're out there and you're calling in, please raise your hand.
Is there anyone here appearing in opposition?
Yep.
If you're attending via Zoom and you wish to speak on the installation of the pole on Pope Street, please raise your hand. If you're here in favor or in opposition. Okay, no comment. Continue. Councillor McCain?
You can continue the hearing to next meeting.
Thank you, Council President. I will move to continue the public hearing to a date certain of January 26th.
Thank you. Councillor McLean moves to keep the hearing open until a date certain of January 26th. All those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries. Appointments and reappointments.
We have the mayor's appointment of James Danforth to serve as a constable with a term to expire on February 1st, 2026.
Councillor Marcillo?
I move that these be received and filed.
Councillor Marcillo moves that these be received and filed. Under discussion?
No discussion.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries.
Further appointments. We have the mayor's reappointment of James Farina to serve as a constable with a term to expire on February 1st, 2026.
Counselor Marcillo?
Thank you, President Stott. I move that this be received and filed.
Counselor Marcillo moves that these be received and filed. Under discussion?
No discussion.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries. So moved. Second, so we will move back to the petition portion of the agenda. As we may have someone appearing in favor of the poll on Pope Street. The number ending in 520. If you're speaking on the matter of the poll on the poll on Pope Street, please state your name and address for the record.
Sabita Mahaber-Strihi, representing National Grid, 44 River Street, Beverly, Massachusetts.
Thank you.
This is to put in a poll for feeder monitoring.
Sorry, Savita, did you say margin? No, the poll that we're discussing is Pope Street.
Yes, it is Pope Street, and it is for feeder monitoring equipment.
Oh, okay, thank you. Sorry, hard time hearing. Anything further to add? No? Okay. Any discussion from the council? Councilor McLean?
Thank you. Point of clarification, are we able to close this public hearing, having already moved to continue it? Yes? Okay, if there's no further comment, then I will make a motion to close this public hearing.
Councilor McLean moves to close the public hearing. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries. Councilor McLean?
I further move that this be adopted by roll call vote.
Thank you. Councilor McLean moves that this be adopted by roll call vote. Any further discussion? This can actually be a hand vote, if that's okay,
That was a cut and paste issue that was on there.
because we're all in person.
Apologize.
Yep. Okay, so we'll adjust it to a hand vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? Let the record reflect I saw 9 hands plus my own. Matter carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Savita. Moving back to page 5, communications from the mayor.
We've been ordered that the sum of $5,255.15 be approved within the Retirement Stabilization Fund Vacation Sick Leave Buyback Account to be expended for the fiscal year 2023 buyback for 2 employees.
Councilor McLean?
I move that this be referred to the Committee on Administration and Finance.
Councilor McLean moves that this be referred to the Committee on Administration and Finance. Under discussion?
No discussion.
Any further discussion? On Councilor McLean's motion to move this to the Committee on Administration and Finance, all those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries.
For the communications, we have an order to accept the donation of $3,000 from Christopher Olson. The donation is to be deposited in the Park and Rec Donation Fund for Classic Series bench at the Salem Common or within the Historic District.
Councilor McLean?
Thank you, Council President. I move for suspension of the rules.
Moves for suspension of the rules. Seeing no objection.
Move for adoption.
Councilor McLean moves for adoption. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Councilor Watson-Felt?
Thank you, President Stott. Just a moment of personal privilege for me. I'm a really close friend of the Olson family, and this donation is in memory of Christopher's father, Ron, who many know as a trolley guide, actually. Ron was a wonderful and unique and special delight, and so we all miss him a lot. I'm looking forward to seeing this bench. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion? on Councillor McLean's motion for adoption? All those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries. Further communications from the mayor?
We have an order to accept the donation of $1,200 from Christian Boyd. The donation will be deposited into the Park and Rec Donation Fund for Classic Series bench at Salem Common or within the Historic District.
Councillor McLean?
I move for suspension of the rules.
Seeing no objection, Councillor McLean?
I move for adoption.
Councillor McLean moves for adoption. Under discussion? Any further discussion? On the motion of Councillor McLean's move for adoption, all those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries. Further communications from the mayor?
We have an order to accept the donation of $1,200 from Justin Zinkowski. The donation is to be deposited in the Parks and Rec Donation Fund for a Classic Series bench at Salem Common or within the Historic District.
Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Council President. I move for suspension of the rules.
Seeing no objection, Councillor McLean?
I further move for adoption.
Councillor McLean moves for adoption. Any discussion?
No discussion.
Councillor McLean moves for adoption. All those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries. Further communications from the mayor?
We have an order to accept the donation of $1,000 from Salem Firefighters Local 172. The donation is to be deposited into the Veterans Donation Fund.
Councillor McLean?
I move for suspension of the rules.
Seeing no objection, Councillor McLean?
I move for adoption.
Councillor McLean moves for adoption. Any discussion?
No discussion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries. I'd just like to say thank you. That was a good page of donations that we're receiving, so we are going to enjoy those park benches. Thank you. Further communications from the mayor.
We have an order pursuant to Chapter 269 of the Acts of 2022. The Salem City Council hereby approves a 5% cost of living adjustment on the base amount of Salem retirees' pension specified in General Law, Chapter 32, subsection 103.
Councillor McLean?
I move that this be referred to the Committee on Administration and Finance.
Councillor McLean moves that this be referred to the Committee on Administration and Finance. Under discussion?
No further discussion. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Dominguez?
Thank you, President Stott. I'd would like to see if we can reconsider the sending to the Administration and Finance, just because we heard today in the public hearing how important it is for us to move and act in this matter as soon as we can. Meaning by that it's not a need, I think, for any big discussion on something that is already in there. Cost of living is automatically in everyone as a citizen, but I know by heart that the retiree are suffering the most. And I think that by moving forward tonight, we bring some alleviation to that group of good gentlemen and ladies who already do their share, working so hard, and it's time for us to act on their behalf. So I would like to see if there's any consideration on behalf of that and to move forward. Thank you.
Councillor Marcillo?
Thank you, President Stott. I would absolutely normally agree, and any other time. This is the first meeting of the year, and I'm getting the pattern from Councillor McLean that he would like to kind of get a grip on things that are happening in administration and finance. I think maybe a good compromise would be an understanding that this will come back at the next meeting for a final disposition one way or the other. So I'm offering that as a suggestion that the committee meeting happen between now and the next meeting so that we can take care of this as soon as possible.
Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Council President. Perhaps I should have added for some additional context. I did receive some emails from some members of the public requesting an opportunity to speak at the committee meeting when this arrived. So part of the motivation for sending this to committee is to make sure that those people have an opportunity to appear as they requested. I'm absolutely intending to return this to the full council at our next meeting.
Any further discussion? On Councillor McLean's motion to refer this to the Committee on Administration and Finance, all those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries. Further communications from the mayor?
We have an order that a petition to the general court on an act providing for payments in lieu of taxes by the South Essex Sewage District in the city of Salem.
Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Council President. I move that this be adopted by roll call vote. Do I need to suspend the rules for this?
Nope.
Thank you.
Councillor McLean moves that this be adopted by roll call vote. Under discussion?
This is an issue that has come up in conversation in the city before, where our agreement with some of our neighbors who contribute to our finances for hosting this process. We would like to see maybe consider helping us a little bit more. It's right now operating on a flat fee. It hasn't been increased in quite some time, and so the city of Salem is sort of bearing a disproportionate burden of the cost for running this process.
Any further discussion? Councillor Marcillo?
Thank you, President Stott. I am happy to see this come in. This is something that's been bothering me for a couple of years now. It always comes up at budget time, and it's always pointed out that we get a pilot payment in lieu of taxes of $500,000 for that land that's used for the South Essex Sewerage District, and that amount, $500,000, has been static since 1993. Usually, when home rule petitions are put in that set up these kinds of agreements, pilot programs, there is an escalator that's included. Back in 1993, that did not happen, which set us up for kind of a political battle between us and the communities that participate in the district. The reason why it's important to pass this tonight is that January 20th is the end date for new bills for the state legislature in order to get them in for this session. As we know, when we put in home rule petitions outside of that deadline, it takes a lot of cajoling of our elected officials to kind of pull them along. We saw that trying to get our special election date set through a home rule petition. This will ensure that it goes through the normal process, which, by the way, is not without our need for lobbying in this case. This past summer, I finally decided to start digging into this issue. The HRP, like I said, was adopted in 1993, and it sets this specific pilot amount to be paid by member communities. There have been attempts in the past to write this, but they are stopped at the board level of the South Essex Sewerage District, because why would any of those representatives vote to increase their constituents' rates? So here we are with beautiful coastal property, which in any of the other communities would be reaping pretty high property taxes. And we have a sewerage treatment plant, which is necessary, and I'm not arguing about that. I'm just saying that the other towns, Marblehead, Beverly, Peabody, and Danvers, do not have such a facility on their coastline. There are other examples in state law providing for pilot agreements which are not static. For instance, the state's agreement for communities that have DCR property under the Watershed Pilot Program for the protection of the state's largest water supply system. The state set a new base amount for each of those communities for that land, and then added a valuation adjustment for every 2 years. So this is a common approach, and it's fair, and it takes the politics out of it. And so, unfortunately, we have to go through this political hurdle to get to a fair agreement. When we were talking over the summer about how to approach this again, the first one was to kind of go back historically about what's happened. And there was a proposal just a few years ago to do a $500,000 jump to set the base at $1 million, and then add this escalator every year. Mayor Bob decided to ease the communities into that and to take 5 years and do $100,000 increases every year to get us up to that base level, and then include the escalator. So, I mean, I think that this is really important. I think it's important for us to understand that we will all need to be involved in lobbying Senator Lovely and Representative Cruz, and, by the way, the other representatives from Beverly, Danvers, Peabody, and Marblehead to get this to go through. And I will be, after this, submitting an order to have a meeting with the Committee of the Whole to bring in all the different parties so that we can further understand the history behind this particular pilot program and why it really needs to be updated. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cohen?
Thank you, President Stott. I want to concur with Councilor Marcillo. That was a great recap. I just want to provide some additional information. Although the facility has been able to enhance technologies, it still requires a lot of money. As a sewer treatment plant, there are pressures that happen within the building, and sometimes if those are not managed to a level that we can't with the current equipment, it does actually create some nuisance in the neighborhoods and even among the employees who are subject to some really bad conditions if the technology is not maintained. So this would enable us to enhance the building as it exists and the facilities. And as Councilor Marcillo said, we are providing a benefit to the other communities beyond just processing the sewer, treating the sewer. Thank you.
Any further discussion? On Councillor McLean's motion to adopt the home rule petition by roll call vote, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Watson-Belt?
Yes.
Council Varela?
Yes.
Council Prosnewski?
Yes.
Council Marcillo?
Yes.
Council Merkel?
Yes.
Council McLean?
Yes.
Council Hapworth?
Yes.
Council Dominguez?
Yes.
Council Cohen?
Yes.
And Council Stott?
Yes. On the question of pilot payment for SESD, 10 members voting, 10 in the affirmative, matter carries. Come here. President's informational page, none. Motions, orders, and resolutions. Did I say It's okay. Oh, mayor's informational page, none. Sorry. Motions, orders, and resolutions.
City of
Councillor
Salem.
McLean, sorry.
Thank you. It's fine. The City of Salem, January 12, 2023, ordered that the monthly financial report for November 2022 be received and filed, and I move for adoption.
Councillor McLean moves for adoption. Any discussion? On Councillor McLean's motion for adoption, all those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries. Councillor McLean?
The year 2022, an ordinance to amend an ordinance relative to traffic. Section 1, Chapter 42, Section 50B, handicap zone limited time is hereby amended by repealing the following. Butler Street in front of number 69 for a distance of 20 feet. Handicap parking, limited time, tow zone. Section 2, this ordinance shall take effect as provided by city charter, and I move for adoption for first passage.
Councillor McLean moves for adoption for first passage. Any discussion? Councillor Watson-Felt?
Just to note that we'll change the year to
I got it.
2023.
I got it.
Thanks.
That
It
was
is
me.
2023, you're right.
It's
Any further discussion?
It's on me.
I will note that Lieutenant Tucker's recommendation was included in the backup package. As our new rules indicate, we should vote or comment on the police recommendation included as well. Any further discussion? On Councillor McLean's motion for adoption for first passage, all those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries. Further motions, orders, and resolutions. Councillor Presnowski.
In the year 2022,
23.
well, it should say 23, correct? An ordinance to amend the ordinance relative to traffic, be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Salem as follows. Section 1, Chapter 42, Section 50B, handicap zone time limited, is hereby amended by adding the following. Congress Street, in front of number 47 Congress Street, beginning 10 feet south of the crosswalk for a distance of 20 feet, handicap parking, limited time, tow zone. The ordinance shall take effect as provided by City Council, and I move that we adopt this for first passage.
Councillor Presnowski moves for adoption for first passage. Any discussion?
No discussion.
Any further discussion? We'll note that there was also Lieutenant Tucker's recommendation in the backup documentation for this passage. On Councillor Presnowski's motion for adoption for first passage, all those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries. Councillor Cohen?
Thank you, President Stott. In the year 2023, be it ordered that the Committee on Public Health, Safety, and Environment meet to discuss and adopt the specialized opt-in code. The specialized code is focused on achieving net zero buildings in alignment with the Commonwealth's 2050 required emissions reductions. As the specialized code was available December 2022, it requires an affirmative vote from the council at the city level. Where adopted, the specialized code requires additional measures to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and make buildings ready for a clean energy future, in addition to the energy efficiency requirements in the base and stretch code. I move for adoption.
Councillor Cohen moves for adoption. Under discussion?
Thank you, President Stott. In February 2021, the Mass Legislature passed the Roadmap Climate Bill. The specialized code provides the tools at the inspectional level, which is imperative and is aligned with the model ordinance the Department of Energy Resources provided for the fossil-free rules this body voted 11-0 to petition the General Court for. I just want to note that I've spoken to Chair Varela of the committee, and we will not schedule a meeting until I've met with the building, electrical, plumbing inspectors, as well as Mayor McCarthy, and some of those meetings are already scheduled. And once those have happened and they understand the need potentially for further staffing, then we'll bring it to the Public Health, Safety, and Environment Committee to review. This is an opt-in code, so it's not like an ordinance that the council would be able to adjust. We just accept it or not. I do want to note that yesterday Brookline and Watertown were the first two committees to adopt this, and if we're going to meet the requirements that the state has established, every community has to adopt the code, the specialized code, as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Watson-Felt?
Thank you, President Stott. I just have a question for clarification. The order here reads to discuss and adopt the specialized opt-in code. Would we be adopting in a subcommittee, or would it have to return to council for full adoption?
Thank you. Through you to Councilor Watson-Felt. We would just hopefully refer it with a positive recommendation, and then we would vote at the council.
Okay, are we all in agreement the language is okay as it stands? Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? On Councillor Cohen's motion for adoption, all those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries. Further motions, orders, and resolutions. Councillor Varela.
Thank you, President Stott. City of Salem, January 12, 2023, ordered that the Committee on Public Health and Safety and Environment meet to discuss a draft ordinance to create a composting ordinance, and I move for adoption.
Councillor Varela moves for adoption. Under discussion.
Thank you, President Stott. So what we have here, and I know you guys have the backup, is the proposal of a composting ordinance for our municipal buildings, our schools, as well as the order reads, or the ordinance reads, is our businesses within 2 years of adoption of this ordinance. I really feel that not only with the updated Mass DEP regulations for commercial food material disposal ban that was lowered from 1 ton, 2,000 pounds to 1,000 pounds in 2022, that we as City of Salem need to do our part when it comes to making sure that organics stay out of our solid waste stream. I think it's important not only to sequester carbon and to keep methane out of our landfills, but going forward for our environment, it's very important that we utilize our organics and make sure that we're utilizing them in a way that will benefit not only our environment, but our residents as well. So with that, over the next month, before we do have a discussion about composting, the intent is to talk to our school committee to see their feedback and get them on board, the appropriate boards and commissions as well. But I really feel like this is a step in the right direction for our city. We need to, as we always are, an example for other municipalities on what the appropriate action is going forward with resiliency of our climate. So with that, thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Cohen?
Thank you, President Stott. I had a good conversation with Chair Varela about this and the next processes to get this thing passed. I did want to mention that, you know, we all know how problematic carbon is. When food is not composted, it becomes methane, as Councilor Varela said. Methane is about 40 times more problematic than carbon as far as how it affects our atmosphere. So I think this is a really good thing for us to consider, and I look forward to doing it in committee.
Any further discussion? On Councilor Varela's motion for adoption, all those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries. Any further motions, orders, or resolutions? Councilor Marcillo.
Thank you, President Stott. This is the order that I was referring to before. Order that the Committee of the Whole hold an informational meeting to discuss the history of the SESD pilot legislation, the need to address the outdated assessment, and the resulting financial burden it has placed on Salem taxpayers. The meeting will include State Senator Lovely, State Representative Manny Cruz, Finance Director Anna Friedman, Director of Assessing Stephen Cortez, City Engineer David Knowlton, the SESD Board, and the Mayor. And I move for adoption.
All those in favor, matter will go right to committee. All those opposed, matter carries. Committee reports. Councillor McLean.
City of Salem, January 12th, 2023. The Committee on Administration and Finance co-posted with the Committee of the Whole, to whom it was referred the matter of a public hearing on Urban Center Housing Tax Increment Financing Program for Lee Fort Terrace, has considered said matter and would recommend adoption by roll call vote. And I move for acceptance of the report.
On acceptance of the report, all those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries. On adoption of the recommendation, under discussion.
Thank you, Council President. We had, I think, close to 5 hours of public hearing and debate on this matter in the Administration and Finance Committee. We heard a lot of comment from the public, from residents of Lee Fort Terrace, both for and against. We heard from Beacon Development. We heard from the Salem Housing Authority, and we heard from our planning director. And we addressed a number of questions in the course of those discussions. A lot of conversation, a lot of concern was raised about the likelihood of the public housing that is currently located at Lee Fort Terrace being appropriately returned at the same level that it is going to be temporarily removed while the property is under construction. I do believe that we received sufficient assurance that that was going to happen. There is a legally binding agreement in place to ensure that Beacon does so. We had a lot of discussion as well about the amount of subsidies that would be available to residents occupying the additional units that will be created as a result of this process. Those are not deed restricted in the same fashion as true public housing, but we are not, of course, allowed to create new public housing in that fashion. And so it does get us to a place where we make support available to citizens who are struggling with affordable housing. And we also had a lot of discussion about the composition of the district in terms of what it means for the ability to either create or incentivize further development within this area. It is clear that the plan that has been proposed has been reviewed by the state and that they are prepared to approve this. There were some questions as to whether it was appropriately composed and it would be legal and accepted. I think those questions were answered as well. So I would urge my colleagues on the council to adopt the recommendation.
Any further discussion? Councillor Hapworth?
Thank you, President Stott. I just want to, I guess, commend Councillor McLean for chairing that meeting. That's his first time chairing a meeting, and it was not an easy one, I think, and it was a lot of public testimony, which we appreciated, but it was well monitored, and we really appreciated that. With this situation at Lee Fort Terrace, I think there are no good options, and I think we can all agree that the situation there is difficult. But the worst option is doing nothing. ADA accessibility is important. Affordable housing is important. Climate resiliency is important. And I also want to congratulate just my colleagues for the due diligence that went into this. I think offline, we had 5 hours of discussion in the meeting, but offline, there was, 90% of the work happened at that time with discussing this with affordable housing advocates and Beacon Properties and city staff and each other, and just ensuring that we understood what we were looking at here. And so just appreciate everybody for the effort that was put in. Appreciate Councillor McLean for the effort that he put in for this.
Councillor Cohen?
Thank you, President Stott. I want to concur about how Councilor McLean managed the process so everyone was heard and we got to a place that we needed to get to. Today we have a decayed property unsafe for the tenants who live in public housing. When finished, this will be a safe, comfortable space for the tenants that will be the most resilient and sustainable property in the city, with 124 public housing units, with the vouchers stay with the unit, with approximately 2.7 million in tax revenue. A win for our environment, a win for the tenants, and a win for the city. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Presnowski?
Thank you, President Stott. I too agree with the building of that down at Lee Fort Terrace, except for one thing that came on early, and that was the design was approved long before a lot of these discussions. A little bit of education, learning that the design for these projects in Salem happened early on, before a lot of the other legalese comes to us, and I think it's important that we as a council take into consideration that any future developments in this city, that we take a look at what they look like before we start approving other things down the road. Pay attention to what's going on. We have several developments in Salem, big developments in Salem, that are going to change the face of Salem, and if they're done correctly, it'll enhance Salem. But if it's done haphazardly, and I still disagree with the way that Lee Fort Terrace looks, but I agree with everything else on it, I don't want to see the rest of the city become looking other than a New England city or reflecting the culture of this community in this area. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Marcillo?
Thank you, President Stott. I am firmly in support of the UCH TIF agreement for Lee Fort Terrace. I've heard public comment both for and against. At the heart of my decision is the overwhelming need for more affordable housing. If you do not know someone who is housing challenged, consider yourself very lucky. And we've heard over and over that we need more affordable units for seniors, for veterans, for families. The discussion, though, always comes down to architecture, the number of cars, the neighborhood character, all things that really shouldn't be the primary concern when we're talking about homelessness. And I guarantee anyone who finds themselves suddenly living in their car would consider the new Leafort Terrace building to be a palace. WBUR has been running a series called Priced Out, focusing on housing issues in the region. This past week, they have focused on older women who suddenly find themselves with no home. As one of the women in the piece said, once you lose your husband and that kind of clout and income, the dynamics change radically for you. Far too many of us are one catastrophic illness away from homelessness. And for young adults who are doing everything they should, working hard and being fiscally prudent, finding an affordable place to live, which also allows them to save for the future, is daunting. While many of us grew up believing that each successive generation will generally do better than their parents financially, young adults these days seem to be breaking that pattern, and it's not their fault. Massachusetts has become an economic powerhouse over the past few decades. In the 80s, it was the software and computer industry, and in the 2000s, it's been biotechnology. The state invested in these industries, and businesses found an educated workforce and appealing location. But the growth in businesses was not partnered with housing production. Over the past few decades, the state failed to create the necessary housing to support our economic growth. Too often, communities use zoning and fear to stop housing production, and we're left with outrageous rents and housing prices. This is not isolated to our state, but is also being felt across the country. Since the 1960s, the federal government has not funded or has underfunded public housing. Leafort Terrace is supposed to provide housing for seniors, veterans, and those with disabilities, but the units are not accessible or safe for aging in place. We heard from a resident who was not allowed to go back to her unit after a medical procedure because her doctor felt it wasn't safe for her while she was recuperating. People bring up the fact that Leafort Terrace is in a floodplain and therefore we shouldn't rebuild, even though the new building will be raised out of any danger. What is the alternative? To do nothing and allow the residents to continue to live in substandard units with no protection from serious storms? Affordable housing costs money. It's more costly to build for many reasons, and funding is extremely limited. But it's our moral obligation to do what we can to create affordable housing here in Salem. And this TIF is a small ask in the long run. Thank you.
Further discussion, Councillor Watson-Felt.
I just wanted to echo the words of my colleagues. I think it is startling when you have access to the numbers of our unhoused neighbors in this area, specifically the number of people who are maybe transiently homed or are partially homed but have no real housing stability. And those numbers being over 22,000, looking for housing through the Salem Housing Authority is sobering, to say the very least. In addition, during my time as executive director of the Women's Friends Society, our number one inquiries coming through the door were by senior unhoused women or senior women without housing security, and it's absolutely heartbreaking. So I had some concerns originally about the area, the parts that were included. To Councillor McLean's point, I feel well heard and well answered on all of those concerns and those points around the disposition of, future disposition of public land, other properties adjacent. I think, to say that our questions were asked and answered is an understatement. I want to appreciate here publicly tonight the openness and willingness to communicate from both the Salem Housing Authority and Beacon communities. Even this week, between meetings, more questions came up from local residents, and Courtney was extremely responsive, even went so far as to look up national studies to help me with more data. And I have to say, I really appreciate the partnership there, and I feel really confident in the program and the plan, and I will be supporting it. Thanks.
Councilor Dominguez?
Thank you, President Stott. I also wanted to concur and say that the last meeting we had, it was a very productive. We have many answers, some of the concern, some still in the airs because some people still commenting on social media and all this stuff. But I think that the whole process was pretty good. I just wanted to say quickly, to add to what everybody is saying, is that we need to make sure that we really focus on both sides of the aisle. I mean, not only when we hear the word affordability, affordable housing, we run real quick, and sometimes we forget when the process starts, we forget to really represent the most needed one. It's a need for affordable housing. It's a need that we take care of the local. It's a need that we really hear the concern of some of the people that living in that building that they feel they might not be, they might not be honored to get back to their places. So it is a fear that is natural, that is in every resident and any citizens. And we as a city council need to make sure that we hear both sides and that we really come with the process that we can really supervise that what any developer promised to do, they comply with. Because we need to make sure that we deliver the answer to the most needed one. In this case, those who do not have a place to live. Thank you.
Any further discussion? On the motion for adoption by roll call vote, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Watson-Belt?
Yes.
Councilor Varela?
Yes.
Councilor Kwasniewski?
Yes.
Councilor Marcillo?
Yes.
Councilor Merkel?
Yes.
Councilor McLean?
Yes.
Councilor Hapworth?
Yes.
Councilor Dominguez?
Yes.
Councilor Cohen?
Yes.
And Councilor Stott?
Yes. On the motion for the Salem Neck UCH TIF Plan District for Lee Fort Terrace, 10 members voting, 10 in the affirmative, matter carries. Councilor McLean, further committee reports?
Thank you, Council President, City of Salem, January 12, 2023. The Committee on Administration and Finance co-posted with the Committee of the Whole, to whom it was referred the matter of a public hearing on tax increment financing for Lee Fort Terrace, has considered said matter and would recommend adoption by roll call vote. And I move for acceptance of the report.
On acceptance of the report, all those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries. On adoption of the report, under discussion.
Thank you, Council President. So just to clarify for anybody who may have questions, the order that we just adopted was for the creation of the district to which this would apply. Now we are voting for the actual passage of the tax increment financing plan, which is also included in our documentation. And I think the one thing that I'll add to everything that's already been said that I think is important for members of the public to understand is that currently the Lee Fort Terrace property generates no tax revenue. So what we are talking about when we are talking about adopting this tax increment financing, we are going to be phasing in taxes on the development so that it doesn't immediately arrive at 100% taxation. But in terms of revenue to the city, all of the revenue generated will be plus revenue. It will all be revenue that is generated on top of the current zero. So there is no loss of revenue that's going to occur from the city by adopting this plan. And with that, I move for adoption of the recommendation.
Thank you. Any further discussion? On Councilor McLean's recommendation for adoption by roll call vote, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Watson-Belt?
Yes.
Councilor Varela?
Yes.
Councilor Kwasniewski?
Yes.
Councilor Marcillo?
Yes.
Councilor Merkel?
Yes.
Councilor McLean?
Yes.
Councilor Hapworth?
Yes.
Councilor Dominguez?
Yes.
Councilor Cohen?
Yes.
And Councilor Stott?
Yes. On the motion for adoption for the tax incremental financing for Lee Fort Terrace, 10 members voted, 10 in the affirmative, matter carries. Communications from city officials.
The following recommendation from the Planning Board relative to zoning affordable accessory dwelling units.
Counselor Marcillo?
I move that this be received and filed.
Counselor Marcillo moves that these be received and filed. All those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries.
Now you can
Further communications from city officials?
Now you will need to decide what you're going to do with the zoning ordinance.
Counselor Marcillo?
Thank you, President Stott. I move that this be referred to the Committee of the Whole.
Counselor Marcillo moves this be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Under discussion?
Thank you. To refresh everyone's memory, we had the joint public hearing on November 30th, which begins the 90-day clock, and the 90-day clock ends on February 28th. The Planning Board held their meeting on December 19th and sent the recommendation to the council, which is what we just received and filed. I do want to let people know that I have set up the Committee of the Whole meeting for next Thursday night at 6:30. And I will also let everyone know that there are a lot of materials on the share drive. We have the recording and the minutes from the September meeting when Amanda came in to kind of update us on what Planning Department has been hearing about ADUs. Her presentation is also up there. I have the presentation, we have information from the joint public hearing. We have the recording of the planning board meeting, and their draft minutes were put up there also. So you can read. Please, I ask people to review that, either listen to the recording or review the minutes so that you can get kind of a more detailed accounting of their discussion around it. There was a lot of really good information. And so, anyways, check out that drive because there is a lot of stuff that you can catch up on up there before next Thursday's meeting.
Thursday at 6:30.
Thursday at 6:30.
We can all use those new iPads. Any further discussion? No. On Counselor Marcillo's motion to refer this to the Committee of the Whole, all those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries. Petitions.
We have a long list of public guides and taxi operators.
Counselor Marcillo.
It must be the new year. I move that these be granted.
Counselor Marcillo moves that these be granted. Any discussion?
No discussion.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries. Further petitions.
With the following license applications for junk dealer, C-worm, and secondhand valuables.
Counselor Marcillo?
I move that these be referred to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs.
Any discussion?
No discussion.
All those in favor to move on the motion to refer this to Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs? All those opposed? Matter carries. Further petitions.
We have 5 claims.
Counselor Marcillo?
I move that these be referred to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs.
Any discussion?
No discussion.
On the motion to move these to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs, all those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries. Petitions.
We have 3 drain layer contract operator licenses.
Counselor Marcillo?
Thank you, President Stott. I move that these be granted.
Any discussion?
No discussion.
On the motion that these be granted, all those in favor? All those opposed? Licenses are granted. Further petitions.
We have a constable bond and a drain layer bond.
Counselor Marcillo?
Thank you, President Stott. I move that these be referred to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs and returned approved.
Any discussion?
No discussion.
On Counselor Marcillo's motion to refer this to Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs and returned approved, all those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries. Unfinished business.
We have a second passage of an ordinance amending Chapter 36, Solid Waste Management, relative to pickup of large items.
Counselor Marcillo?
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, President Stott. I move that this be adopted for second and final passage.
Counselor Marcillo moves that this be adopted for second and final passage. Under discussion?
No discussion on my part.
Okay, Counselor Presnewski?
Just for the public's clarification, President Stott, and maybe this question may be more directed to our clerk, when this passes tonight, when does it become in effect? In other words, how much of a time period do people have before they have to start paying for bulk items out on the street? So my understanding is that,
Are you suspending the rules?
Oh,
is that this will become in effect as soon as the mayor passes, as soon as the mayor signs it, which could be as early as tomorrow, but no later than 10 days.
so if you'd like to move for a suspension of the rules, do I see one? For a representative from the mayor's office, Councilor Varela moves for suspension of the rules. Did you have something to add? Oh, that covered it? Okay, sorry. So yes, that's correct, that it's in effect as soon as the mayor signs it.
Thank you.
I believe at our OLA meeting, it was discussed that we received the notices in the mail. I'm sure there will be an implementation timeframe, and there is going to be a communication plan, as was discussed in OLA before.
But for the people viewing tonight, at least they know when it's going to
Yeah,
start.
it begins.
Thank you very
This
much.
is the second and final. Any further discussion? Councillor Watson-Felt?
Thank you, President Stott. Having not been in person at the OLA meeting, I don't think. I do have some questions about some of the language. I found the item number 3 under section 1 to be a little confusing. I'm wondering if someone from OLA could maybe shed some light. It says here that items will be collected by appointment twice per month. It says both by appointment and twice per month. And then it says limited to recycling 2 such items through the city contract per calendar year. So I think, just for a point of clarification, it is, there are not 2 set dates per month at which you need to also make an appointment, or there are only 2 days per month during which you have to also make your manual appointment. Okay, how does the public know what those 2 days a month are?
They coincide with your recycling and trash pickup.
Excellent, helpful information. And then the second, so the 2 items, so it's the same as our bulk. It's the same as our bulk. It's just a different contractor. So same rules. Okay, and plus the $20. That's the only difference, really. And the rules around disposing of your mattress. Okay, thank you for that clarification. I read this multiple times today and was still very confused, so I appreciate that.
Yes, because these are just the amendments that are being, yeah. It is in the shared drive, though, and for OLA, if you wanted to go and look at the full documentation.
I'm sorry.
Any further discussion? Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Council President. I understand that the state has changed the standard in terms of what we can and cannot do with mattress and box spring disposal and recycling. And I understand the idea that we're bringing in a new contract and that we want to pay for that. But I really just don't like the idea that we have taken this opportunity to charge for bulk pickup items in general. I just don't think we needed to do that, so I'm not going to vote in favor of this.
Any further discussion? On the motion for adoption for second and final passage, all those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries. Unfinished business.
We have a second passage of an ordinance relative to Chapter 42, Section 62, to amend the language to the fund, to the tree donation fund.
Councilor Marcillo?
Thank you, President Stott. I move for adoption for second and final passage.
Councilor Marcillo moves for adoption for second and final passage. All those in favor? All those opposed? I'm sorry, and any discussion? Matter carries. Apologies. Councilor Dominguez.
Oh, wait.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilor Merkel?
Thank you, President Stott. I asked for a moment of personal privilege.
So granted.
I just want to say congratulations on on the first meeting as our president, and it was really impressive, and it's great to see you up there, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Cohen?
Thank you. I also want to encourage everyone to treat Monday, Martin Luther King Day, as a holiday that is deserved, and may we all reflect on the good work that he did for our society.
Thank you. Councilor Dominguez.
Thank you, President Stott. I think Councilor Marco stole a little bit of my line. I wanted to congratulate you once again. Well done. I think this is the beginning of a long year, and I think we all agree that you did a great job tonight, and you will continue to do a great job. So congratulations. With that said, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you.